In today's video, we're talking about those little bumps on your skin. No matter what you do, exfoliate, scrub, moisturize, they just don't seem to go away. If you've ever looked at the backs of your thighs, your upper arms, even your cheeks, you notice these little bumps. And you've asked yourself, why does my skin look like plucked chicken skin? You're not alone. This is a common condition. You might be dealing with Keratosis pilaris, otherwise known as rough and bumpy skin, chicken skin, strawberry skin. But here's the thing, a lot of bumpy skin conditions look like Keratosis pilaris, but are not Keratosis pilaris. In this video, I'm going to help you figure out, A, what exactly is Keratosis pilaris and why does it happen? And I'm going to be clarifying how to spot the differences between Keratosis pilaris and other little skin bumps. Most importantly, we're going to be talking about what you can do moving forward to help control these bumpy skin conditions. What exactly is Keratosis pilaris? Keratosis pilaris, or KP for short, is a dry skin condition where you have a buildup of dry, rough skin around the hair follicle, leading to these little rough, dry bumps. Oftentimes, those bumps, which are overlying a hair follicle, have a reddish base, but not always. Keratosis pilaris basically happens when your skin becomes dry and the keratin builds up. When the skin is dry, it can't exfoliate away that keratin properly. It builds up and plugs the hair follicle, and that's why you get those little bumps. They can be skin colored, pink, red, or even brown. They're dry to the touch like sandpaper. They tend to appear on the upper arms, the thighs, the cheeks, even the buttocks. And importantly, it's not contagious, but it's chronic, and of course, there's often an underlying genetic component. So if your parents or a sibling have it, there's a chance you might get it too. Keratosis pilaris usually shows up in childhood or adolescence. In some cases, it improves with age, but in a lot of cases, it's just this chronic thing that you always have to maintain, and it comes and goes. So if that sounds like you, keep watching, because there are a lot of other skin issues that can look exactly the same. What else could these little bumps be? Well, let's break down some common skin conditions that can look an awful lot like Keratosis pilaris. Number one is folliculitis. This one's actually pretty common. Folliculitis is when your hair follicles become inflamed, usually from bacteria, yeast, or just plain irritation. But unlike Keratosis pilaris, these little bumps can be filled with pus. They're red, and they often can be painful. They might even itch or sting. They often show up after shaving, sweating, or wearing really tight clothing that puts a lot of friction on your skin. If your bumps are tender and seem to be getting worse, there's a good chance it's not Keratosis pilaris. It could be a folliculitis. Number two is actually follicular erythema. That's a fancy medical term for redness around the hair follicle, related to not Keratosis pilaris, but rather hair removal techniques, especially waxing or shaving or plucking. If you notice that every time you wax or shave your arms, you get these little red spots around the hair follicle, that's likely just irritation of the follicle due to the hair removal. It has nothing to do with Keratosis pilaris. It's basically just your hair follicle skin reacting to the aggression of hair removal, whether it be the pulling out with wax or the blade dragging across the skin and disrupting the skin barrier, increasing transepidermal water loss. The key difference between this and Keratosis pilaris is that the redness usually shows up pretty shortly after removing the hair, and it usually calms down and clears up within a couple of days. Keratosis pilaris, on the other hand, while it can flare up and calm back down, it's not so closely linked to hair removal, and it tends to stick around much longer. So if your bumps appear like clockwork anytime you remove hair, there's a good chance it's follicular erythema, not Keratosis pilaris. Number three is eczema, otherwise known as atopic dermatitis. This one's tricky because a lot of people who have this type of eczema also have Keratosis pilaris, so it's definitely possible and common to have both. But atopic dermatitis can look an awful lot like Keratosis pilaris because the inflammation of that type of eczema often involves the hair follicle as well. But atopic dermatitis characteristically is intensely itchy. It can start out oozy and weepy, and over time become thickened, dry, and flaky. Keratosis pilaris is not usually that intensely itchy, unless your skin is just so dry. If you find that the itch is keeping you up at night, you're experiencing oozing, weeping, sores, the skin seems to break down, that is more characteristic of atopic dermatitis. Plus, you're going to have rashy appearing skin outside of the hair follicle itself. Next up is something called Pityrosporum folliculitis. Now, a lot of people just like to refer to this as fungal acne. It's not technically acne. It's actually actually a type of folliculitis. Now, we already touched on folliculitis, but this one bears special attention because it's actually caused by an overgrowth and overabundance of a little yeast that, guess what, is normally present on everyone's skin. Like, it's supposed to be there. But this yeast can become too comfortable, especially if you live in a humid tropical climate where you sweat a lot, or you wear clothing that traps moisture and sweat against the skin. It just creates a favorable environment for this oil-loving yeast to just thrive and cause your body to say, hey, this is not right, bring in a lot of inflammation that leads to the formation of these little itchy red bumps, oftentimes on the forehead, the upper chest, the upper back, locations where you typically would see acne, but you also could see Keratosis pilaris. The little spots are usually uniform in size, and they all appear more or less the same. That's known as monomorphic. They tend to be quite itchy, especially for people who live in hot, humid climates. So if you notice that what you think is Keratosis pilaris is getting worse whenever you sweat or it becomes really hot and humid out, this could be Pityrosporum folliculitis, aka fungal acne, and not Keratosis pilaris. Then we have Milia, probably one of the most misunderstood little bumps on the internet. Milia are actually tiny white cysts filled with that keratin protein. They're often found around the eyes, the cheeks, they can be on the backs of the hands. In contrast to Keratosis pilaris, they have nothing to do with the hair follicle, and they're not red or irritated. They don't respond to things like moisturizers or keratolytics like urea, glycolic acid, lactic acid, like Keratosis pilaris typically does. Instead, they need a minor procedure in order for them to go away, although sometimes they can spontaneously resolve on their own. Check out my videos on Milia. I do a deep dive there on the causes. And last but not least is body acne. This one's pretty easy to spot. You have larger inflamed pimples, which are not characteristic of Keratosis pilaris. Some of these pimples may be filled with pus, which can make it a little bit more challenging perhaps for you to know, is this acne or is it a folliculitis? But it should be obvious if you've got little pus-filled bumps that it's not Keratosis pilaris, that's for sure. Acne, of course, can be painful. Sometimes it's itchy, and it can heal with a dark mark, stubborn redness, and even a scar. So if your bumps are large, they're deep, they're painful, this is more characteristic with cystic acne, not Keratosis pilaris. So when should you actually see a dermatologist to figure out what exactly is going on? Here are a few tips. If the little bumps are painful, itchy, or seem to keep spreading, you might want to get in to figure out what exactly is going on. If you've tried over-the-counter products that you read would be helpful for chicken skin or strawberry skin, whatever you want to call it, Keratosis pilaris, and they don't seem to make a dent, it might not be Keratosis pilaris, or it might be Keratosis pilaris and you just might have a particularly stubborn case that requires more targeted treatment. So again, another reason to see a board-certified dermatologist, maybe a prescription topical is necessary. If you're just not sure what's going on, don't try and Google your way out of it. See a dermatologist. Trust me, skin conditions, they're not always slam dunks. They're not always straightforward. In many cases, a dermatologist might even need to spend a little bit more time carefully examining your skin, looking at other body sites for supporting clues, taking some skin samples, a skin biopsy even might even be indicated. Now, if you've been shaving or waxing and you notice that you get those little red spots around the hair follicles immediately afterwards, well, then it's time to take a look at your hair removal techniques. For example, making sure that you're changing your razor regularly, you're not shaving with a dull blade, you're not pressing too hard, you're using a shave product to lubricate the skin, or maybe you even consider pursuing laser hair removal. Check out some of my videos on hair removal. I have many, so take advantage of that YouTube search bar, put it to work. If you have a question about a particular topic, there's a good chance I've already covered it and you can access it by typing into the search box Dr. Dray and whatever topic you're interested in. YouTube will show you the videos that I have made on that very topic. So how do you get rid of Keratosis pilaris? Well, if it is Keratosis pilaris, there are a couple of tried and true strategies for clearing it up, but it's important to keep in mind this tends to be a chronic condition. You don't just put a cream on it and it goes away and that's it. It comes, it goes, and so a maintenance regimen is usually necessary. Start with a good moisturizer that has an ingredient known as a keratolytic. Keratolytics include urea, lactic acid, glycolic acid, also salicylic acid. These ingredients help exfoliate, they help smooth the skin surface, and in some cases they even help improve water retention, which ultimately will reduce the formation of those dry bumps because because it will help the skin turn over more efficiently and not have the skin cells that are dead and need to be shed get stuck together in that dry keratin heap inside the follicle. Consistency is key here. Don't expect results overnight. In the description box, I will provide a link to my Rough and Bumpy moisturizer Rex if you want to look there. Consistency is key though. You might not really see much of a change until after 4 to 6 weeks of regular use. For more stubborn cases, a topical retinoid may be indicated. You could also try an over-the-counter retinol body lotion, but your derm might prescribe additional topicals such as topical corticosteroids to calm down any inflammation associated with the keratosis pilaris, and maybe seek out a compounding pharmacy to compound you a very specific exfoliating cream for the condition. Also, using a humidifier in dry climates can help improve water content in your skin, making sure to limit your showers to ideally no more than 10 minutes and make sure the water temperature is not really hot. Long hot showers can dry out the skin even more and aggravate keratosis pilaris. When you get out of the shower, gently pat dry the skin. Don't take the towel and rub it on your skin aggressively. That's more disruptive to the skin barrier. After you've pat dry the skin gently, apply your moisturizer with a Keratolytic to really allow it to sink in there, to hydrate, and to go to town on those little dry rough bumps. So to recap, if you have rough and bumpy skin on your arms and your thighs, it might just be keratosis pilaris, or it could be another bumpy skin condition, such as folliculitis, follicular eczema, follicular redness from hair removal, fungal acne, aka Pityrosporum folliculitis, Milia or body acne. You want to pay attention to the location on your body where you're getting the bumps, the timing, and you want to make note of any symptoms like itching, burning, or pain. And you also want to kind of check in and see, do the bumps clear up after a while, or do they stay for a prolonged period of time? Remember, your skin is trying to tell you something, so pay attention. It provides many clues. All right, guys, so that's what I wanted to talk about with regards to keratosis pilaris mimickers. I hope you all found this video helpful. Now, recently I did a video on my go-to recommendations for keratosis pilaris, clearing it up and preventing flare-ups, and we talk about things like diet, lifestyle factors, and in-office procedures. Laser hair removal does that work. So if you've got keratosis pilaris and you want to know more details, make sure you watch that video. It'll be on the end slate. But if you like this one, give it a thumbs up, share it with your friends, and as always, don't forget, sunscreen and subscribe. I'll talk to you guys tomorrow. Bye.